Well, we have what he said word for word in front of the judge. Do you think he says all this? No. He knuckles under. His chance to stand tall. His chance to stand tall and tell the judge, no, you're a fucking prude. You're a nerd. No, he just goes, take knuckles under instead of putting his knuckles up. He goes, meow. Knuckles under. So anyways, this is the state of Minnesota versus Nicholas Robert Rekieta. And we get through all of this here. He has his great legal mind, Frank White, there. So we get going here as far as the set. So the court decides to start looking at the cases here. The court ordered the pre-sentence investigation report. And the agreement does recommend the statutory stay of adjudication pursuant to the Minnesota statutes. And they talk about what's going to happen here. And then we have Nick not really understanding what's going on. Good job. So as we get to this, this is where the prosecutor, I will say, did the right thing. Because they point out that there was a bit of a lapse in what was actually agreed to and what's being recommended. All right. So we're not getting to all the basic nonsense here. Somebody did try to file a notice to record. They didn't file it timely, so that got squished. And even if they had filed it timely, they never served it on the attorney, so it would have failed anyway. But the prosecutor herself gets up there. Remember, this is the woman Nick did nothing but talk absolute shit about. Yet she comes in, says, here's what you're pleading to, and Nick goes, okay. Remember, he used to talk shit about her, whether she could learn how to type or anything like that. The gods hate hubris. Do not tempt them. So anyway, she's reviewed the PSI, the pre-sentence investigation report. And she says that, they point out that we're asking the court to impose or grant the stay of adjudication. They say we're asking for the probationary period to be up to 5 years. It says the maximum term is up to the maximum sentence of imprisonment for the charge. The maximum sentence is for 5 years, which in this case is 5 years imprisonment. So that's why we're asking for 5 years. And they point out that if he's compliant, he could be discharged early. That's their way of saying, look, we're not going to get in the way. If he's following the rules, he can terminate early. Cool. They are requesting community service in lieu of a fine, which is fair as well. And they say this sanction is intended to provide pro-social sober activity rather than just a monetary fine amount. Because they want him to go do something productive, not just cut a check, because that does nothing. Now, this is where I will say the prosecutor did the right thing. As far as the jail time, it was not included in the formal plea petition, but it was part of our plea negotiations. And I believe they relied on the fact the state would not request any additional jail time. So the state is asking that the court only impose 2 days of jail with 2 days of credit. So she did the right thing there. Good for her. Good on them. That doesn't always happen. So they point out that it's common to agree to no additionally executed jail time. We normally do that. And they're asking if you do have to impose it, require a report date down the road and hope he's compliant with probation. And that's what they wanted. And that's a fair way to resolve this. It's a fair way to resolve this. So this is then, as the court goes along here, starts talking to his attorney, Frank White. And he says, yes, I agree with the state. Please do what we need to do here. They talk about is outlined in the sentencing memorandum. We think 5 years is a bit much. It's a bit heavy-handed, but yeah. He says Nick has no prior criminal history, no prior criminal felony record, nothing as a juvenile. And they say the sentence is established as a D6. He has no priors. He's abstaining in the community, except he wasn't. He hasn't been. We've heard him drunk on stream before. He has no objection to the community service, which is weird. Then why did you guys argue about the community service? Remember what I said when we reviewed the sentencing memorandum? That's not the thing you want to fight over. Waste your time fighting on the important things. We think a briefer term of probation is required. And I think this is really sad. Frank White didn't really go to bat for his client. He just made a couple of procedural arguments and then okay, I'm done. Like nothing about, he's, Your Honor, he's a smart guy. He's working hard. Like nothing positive, really. This was kind of sad. I'm not very impressed with this. As we hear Nick shit talk his attorneys more and more and more now. Yeah, these guys, White was not impressive in this. So the judge does say, all right, Mr. Rekieta, your position here today, you have the right to provide a statement. And he says, yes, Your Honor, I would love to. Now, notice, does he say any of that shit we just heard third world aristocrat talk about? No. Nick takes the knee. He says, Your Honor, I've always been called smart by my mentors, by my teachers, by my community members who I've associated with. And after a while of making decisions that end up very well, you start to think that you maybe are kind of smart and you could control something. Control decisions that you make and how that will impact people. Now, here's something I will admit to Nick. Like, yeah. When everybody tells you you're the smartest guy in the room, you tend to believe it. Whether or not it's warranted. Like, that is a very common thing. So that is something where I know people are bagging on for, but I mean, I understand what he's getting at. Everybody kept telling him he was smart. Everybody kept telling him, you the man. Well, after a while, you're like, I guess I am. I mean, it happens. You start, for a while, you do things safely that aren't safe. Yeah. That happens too. You start getting away with it. You're like, okay, I guess I could do this. So then you push and you push and you push and you push. And then eventually things go bad. And notice he says, what I did was put my children through something I can't ever undo. I thought you said nobody suffered but you. I thought you said drugs are cool. It's all cool. There's no consequences. Like, why aren't you saying all this? Why are you saying something different to the judge? Are you scared? Are you scared he's going to be a nerd? Are you scared he's going to be a nerd and send you to nerd prison? Then the ball's going to say, drugs are cool, Judge. You should just quit being a do them with me. Didn't do that. Like, really, we just listen to all that. I mean, like, let's keep going here for a second.
An opportunity, eliminate moral boundary.
The state said in my case, there are no victims here.
The only victim of anything I did is me. And
I put my family through living hell.
I mean, but did you? I mean, it sounds like you didn't. I don't know. Had your chance to stand tall and like be defiant and thump that chest. I'm like, I'm gonna give up. Okay. He talks in the PSI, laid out the circumstance, and as a decision, my decision is not the decision of anybody else. In the PSI, it laid out circumstances that I feel led up to what happened. I would love to understand what you think happened, Nick, because I'm hilarious. But at the end of the day, it was literally me holding the bag. Okay. It was my choices, and it's the consequences are borne by the people around me as much as they are me. But you just said there are no consequences. I don't get it. I have to spend a lot of time working to repair that. What? There's nothing to repair. I've broken the trust with community members. No, you didn't. I thought they were all liars. And it was a conspiracy. And it was a game of telephone. And like CPS was in a conspiracy. And it's because you're speaking truth to power. And that when you speak, the halls of power tremble. I thought what was this all about? What gives? Home Slice? You beat that chest on the internet, and then when you go in there, you're like, meow. Come on. I have trust with my family members, with my wife and my children. What are your children? You didn't break your trust with your children. Your children could go into high school and be like, hey, man, you think you're cool? The police raided my house, huh? Your parents are a bunch of lamers. What did they do that's cool, huh? The cops ain't raiding your house, buddy. We're cool at my house. Did your dad ever manage to do anything like that? Oh, you took you to the Pine Box Derby. Boring. With the decisions that I made, for all that I want to say to the court, the community, to them is, I'm very sorry. Really? You're gonna tell everybody you're sorry? I thought it was you're cool, and you didn't tell them. Like, I think you guys are all just a bunch of bitches. Like, I don't know. Maybe he's gonna start showing up at Pirate Software streams as one of the weasels in the back. The weasel streams. law-splaining the weasel webs. I mean, really, you spend all that time telling us, spend all that time talking about what the is going to happen, and then when it happened, you're just like, meh, it's just ridiculous. Like, oh well. Yeah, sorry. So the judge does point out, though, there's a few things here. And this is where I think the judge didn't understand Nick. And like I said, I think Nick's whole thing at the beginning here of like, yeah, I kind of believed my own bullshit because everybody told me I was smart. I think that's true. That happens. That 100% happens. I fully understand that. So like, I know people were up on him for it, but like, it's a legitimate, like, yeah, everybody tells you you're smart. Like you tend to think like, everybody keeps saying you're awesome. And you're like, I guess I am awesome. So when the judge goes into this, I think it's like he didn't understand or he just didn't want to hear that. And maybe that was just a packaging issue by Nick. There's a difference between being smart and wise, and you have, in your past, a lot of things going for you, It's like, God, why does he have to do that? Nick had a very solid education, solid degrees, a good family, a good career. Yeah. These things right here are things that normally people who have drug issues don't have. They didn't have a stable home life. They didn't they grew up not having, stable housing, stable parents. Maybe their parents were drug users themselves. Maybe it was an abusive relationship, that they didn't have money. Their parents couldn't really take care of them. They barely got by. That you had shitty trauma in your past, that you had experiences with really shitty people. Those are usually the things that cause you to end up in drug addiction. Nick's is just because I don't like this anymore. I want to be 15 again or 20 again. That's all he did. And he jeopardized everything here, which was really unwise. And you should know better as your history in the legal field and how much you put yourself in jeopardy and your family in jeopardy by your decisions. Yeah, it really is. Of all the people, you should know how bad this is. And once again, Chad, this is where I get to the issue of it shouldn't be illegal, but I'm telling you what the law is so you can avoid it or at least make a proper decision. There's a lot of things I think are unconstitutional and shouldn't exist because I know what happens if you break the law. And I'm not willing to deal with that. If I'm willing to deal with that, I'll break the law. But until then, I'm not going to do it. And the judge points out this is a severe offense in terms of public safety and community safety. Yeah. People in Kandiyohi County don't want people running around with 20 grams of blow. It says this involves the possession of cocaine. It furthers the drug trade, the illegal drug trade in this case, by your involvement in it. And this wasn't residue or a small amount. So it's really concerning to the court. And then they say, on the other hand, who is in a good position to review and determine how things have progressed through your pretrial? And they point out that, you have progressed through pretrial, which I don't know if he did. I don't know how well he really did, because remember, they couldn't really test him. So they think this is appropriate. So he's going to get his adjudication. And they say, number two, that you made substantial changes since the time of this warrant for the state to not recommend any jail. I mean, did he really make any changes? Because if you ask him, he didn't. Remember, he said, I don't have anything to be sorry about. Now, this is where, when I tell you, you guys normally ask me if you say things that help you or just hurt you. Generally, it's only hurting you. But this is one of the times where the judge was like, I was on the fence about what to do and about whether I would order additional jail or not. So, yeah, the judge was kind of on the fence still. So, yes, what you say and do can go a long way to help you. I've said it before, chat. When you're on pretrial release, if you don't like this thing in Minnesota where you could pay to basically do whatever you want, we don't have that here. If you're on pretrial release, that is a job interview. You are trying to show the court how well you could do if you end up on probation. I mean, obviously, we can get the case dismissed, great, but if you don't and you have to plea or you get convicted, well, now we got to deal with probation, and the judge is going to say you didn't follow the rules before, or you did follow the rules before, or you tried. It's all important. It's all important. So he said, I'm going to go instead with a deferral because there are some requirements the court must look at other than just rehabilitation. And this is where you get to the purposes and principles of sentencing, like protecting the community, punishing the offender, rehabilitating the offender. So it's looking at, public protection, deterrence, and public condemnation of them. And those are from the sentencing guidelines. In Ohio, they're called the purposes and principles of sentencing. And these are factors the court has to look at here. And this is stuff here that if I was white, I would have been hammering on, but he didn't do that, which is very like, I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't. Now, the judge says it'll be a deferrable term. You won't have to serve it so long as you're compliant. But it's another incentive for you to make sure that you're following the pretrial path. So the judge goes through all of this. And, he's going through here and he says, and this is really interesting. Really, the probationary period is a maximum sentence of up to 20 years. That's insane. 20 years on probation? Like that whole, like in Florida, you can do that. You can have decades of probation. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The maximum penalty is 20 years and a $250,000 fine. He has a score of 0 for criminal history. And the presumptive guidelines called for a state commitment for a period of 21 months. Now, this is where I mentioned it, chat. This is where Nick has pled guilty. And then the court goes through here and hits pause. They hit the pause button. And the court will not enter a conviction. Instead, it will stay adjudication and place him on probation for a period of up to 5 years. Now, we talk about the conditions. Number 1, the 30 days in jail, as long as he's a good boy. He has to complete 80 hours of community service. He has to follow all recommendations from his discharge from Divine Hope. And then you're going to have to no alcohol or mood-altering chemicals except as prescribed. And I'm going to indicate that probation should obtain a baseline as early as possible. So that's an issue. It's like, well, where are you at right this second? Because he's been allowed to do whatever he wanted. And we've heard him on multiple streams slurring and acting like a Yahoo. So they get through all of that. They also want him to do the cognitive skills program, remain law-abiding, meet with the probation department as directed, obtain permission before leaving the state, follow all general conditions, including all state and federal criminal laws. Now, they do all of this and they're done. Now, this is something here, where the judge says, look, this is the time you're demonstrating much better choices in your life. Well, it's an opportunity. And I love this part from the judge. He's like, I'm not sure why you chose these poor decisions late in your life when you had so much going for you at that time. It seems like, the temptation of, and he's like, I think he's trying to be nice, saying like, there's no reason for you to have done this. You skid out of control from your alcohol use. He says like, you need to be mindful, to preserve not only your chemical health, but also prevent any further jail time. And look, Nick doesn't say, Your Honor, you're wrong. One day you'll be cool like me and you'll understand. No, he just goes, yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. And the court says, all right, thank you. I'll conclude hearing. Nick says, thank you, Judge. He had to tell that Scandinavian prude, thank you. Danke. And that's it. One thing I don't notice in here in this, and we haven't seen anywhere, is Nick getting permission to go to Hackmania? I don't know. Is he going to file for it soon? He probably should. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, that's it. That's the whole Nick story there, chat. Just don't do what he did. That's all I can say. That's all I can say here.